Welcome to Soccer Morning on NASN. Here's your host, Jason Davis.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. Jason Davis here with you on Soccer Morning. Show number 4 of a fantastic week of shows, if I do say so myself. I am sitting in a proper desk chair at a desk-like situation, looking into a camera, talking into a microphone. I'd love to be doing this show from a couch. That'd be fun. How great would that be? Just to lay back and relax and chill and do this show from a couch. That would be great. I don't know. Would that be okay with all of the people listening? Probably not. You can tell the difference when somebody's lying down versus sitting up. Like when you're on the phone with somebody, don't lie down and talk to me. Sit up. Big show today. We've got a full lineup of guests. Peter Karl, one of the gentlemen behind the American Futbol movie, formerly of The Third Kit, which was one of my favorite blogs back in the day. He'll join us in a couple minutes, talk about the filmmaking process. They've got an Indiegogo campaign. They are halfway to their goal. They have a week left. It is time to make the big push for the American Futbol movie. Perhaps you've seen some of the footage they've shot so far. Perhaps you've been following along with the campaign from the guys at American Futbol movie. It's great stuff. They've got some really cool pre-game video from USA South Korea that is worth a watch. I mean, it's fans hanging out, doing the tailgating thing, playing cornhole, drinking a lot, a little bit of karaoke involved. So you're going to get a quality product out of those guys. We'll talk to Peter about that process, about the Indiegogo campaign in a couple minutes. We also have Tom Marshall, our friend from south of the border, will talk to us about Mexican soccer. We'll get his take on the view of Jorge Vergara finally selling Chivas USA, how that's being viewed in Guadalajara, because for a long time, and if you have read, this is where I'm going to point you after we talk to Tom today. Please go check out SB Nation, The GOAT Parade. Alicia Rodriguez has written a long-form piece on the history of Jorge Vergara and his involvement with Chivas USA. She quotes Tom Marshall. Some of it is about the view of those Chivas de Guadalajara fans of Jorge Vergara's involvement in an American team. What exactly was the point? What was he trying to do? Was it splitting his attention? All of those things are open questions, and we'll talk to Tom about that, in addition to some other topics as well. Chicharito will always come up. We really don't have a reason to talk about Carlos Vela anymore, do we? Like, that's just a done thing. Carlos Vela, he may have made some comments fairly recently about why he's staying out, but he doesn't address the main issue. He doesn't address the real reason he's not involved with the Mexican national team anymore. And so that's, you wonder how much of a distraction that's going to be. But maybe Carlos Vela's not worth talking about anymore. We'll also have Leander Schaerlaeckens at 11 o'clock to go over the Champions League results. Yesterday's games, you had 2 of them. You had Chelsea going to Istanbul and drawing with Galatasaray 1-1. That game was fascinating from sort of a seesaw perspective. It was not all Chelsea, but it seemed like Chelsea was doing their Chelsea thing. Jose was doing his Jose thing for much of that match. Roberto Mancini, yes, Galatasaray's manager is Roberto Mancini, makes an adjustment, 30th, 31st minute, somewhere in that range. Galatasaray goes on to sort of boss the game from there on out, and eventually got their goal from an unlikely source and drew, and now they have a chance to go to Stamford Bridge and surprise Chelsea. The other game was not even a game, not even a competition. Real Madrid went to Germany and waxed Schalke 6-1. Sorry, I almost said 4-1, because at one point the joke was, oh, look, it's Schalke 04. Now it's Schalke 05. Oh, look, now it's 6-1 is the final. You can't really do the joke anymore. With a goal on Schalke's end, you can't do it. You can't do the joke anymore. But Schalke is, a solid German team. And one of the things that's fascinating to me out of this round of Champions League results, so not just this round, but in general, the gap between the Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmunds of the world, or those two clubs, and the rest of the Bundesliga, at least when it comes to European competition. That doesn't mean Schalke is a bad team. Real Madrid is a powerhouse. Real Madrid is hitting their stride. Gareth Bale's on fire. Ronaldo's on fire. You can't really stop them at this point. So this isn't really necessarily fair to Schalke. But to lose 6-1 at home in the round of 16 in the Champions League, I mean, that's got to hurt. That's got to hurt a lot. Not just a little bit, but a lot. So Schalke Didn't put up much of a fight. We'll talk to Leander about that. Certainly the other results and what we can look forward to in the second legs. I think Olympiacos is the only home team to win. Is that right? Now, again, you've got Galatasaray with a draw against Chelsea, but was Olympiacos the only home team to win in this round? I think away teams outscored home teams like 21-6, or maybe that was even before yesterday's results. It may be worse than that now. Go add up those goals for me. Very strange situation in this round of the Champions League with these games and the away sides doing so well. Fascinating as always. Before we get to Peter Karl from American Football Movie, AmericanFootballMovie.com, football spelled the Latin way, Futbol. Before we do that, I want to just touch on a couple of fan-initiated campaigns that have come to the forefront in the last couple of days. One of them is the petition in San Antonio. San Antonio fans want MLS. Everybody wants MLS. This is good news for MLS. This shows that there is demand across the country. Always like seeing fans get involved. Always like to see fans putting themselves. Don't rely. Look, you're going to need a rich guy. You're going to need a rich guy. You're going to need a stadium. You're going to need all of those things. But don't just sit on your hands and wait. Make it clear that there is a popular movement towards soccer in your area. This goes for across the board. I mean, look, we will point to the Sons of Ben and what they managed to accomplish in Philadelphia, but it's not just them. This has been true for many places. Like you may live in an area that was lucky enough to be granted an MLS franchise when the original teams were handed out, or you may live in Chicago, or you may be in one of those cities where expansion was very early. Remember, Chivas USA came in just a couple of years after the two Florida teams were folded. So you may have a team already, and you don't need to do this kind of stuff. There are other ways to support your club and support soccer in your area. But if you're looking to get an MLS team, and San Antonio's got a team, they've got a team in the NASL, a competitive team in the San Antonio Scorpions. But they've launched a petition now. We're giving San Antonio fans the opportunity to come together in one single voice and say, yes, we are ready for Major League Soccer, said Michael Macias, who I've had interactions with. I've talked to him before. Good guy, founder of the Crocketeers, which is a San Antonio-based supporters group that has existed for quite some time now. Before the Scorpions arrived, the Crocketeers have been around. The petition launched on Sunday, they're looking to get 20,000 signatures. Now, that would be a lot. Now, and I think it's easy to poo-poo the notion of the online petition. And what does an online petition really mean? I once launched an online petition. It involved Moondos and a U.S. national team qualifier being on Moondos. It didn't do a damn bit of good. I don't remember how many signatures we got. Didn't do a damn bit of good. The other fan push that's happening right now is the Black Army, the supporters group for Chivas USA. And obviously, it's a tumultuous time in Los Angeles for the Chivas USA fan base. They are launching a campaign, or they're planning to launch a campaign. I don't think it's off the ground yet. Where they want to raise money to buy the team themselves. Now, again, easy to laugh at this, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I don't think they're going to raise enough money to buy Chivas USA. We're talking what, 70, 75, $80 million perhaps. Maybe more, depending on what MLS is looking to get out of that team. But you have to admire the initiative, the wherewithal, the drive to be, look, this is our club. Let's act like it's our club. We'll put this together. Even if we don't go anywhere, at least it shows how committed we are to Chivas USA, and that's a good sign too. And in a time when it is so difficult to know what the future is for that club, a team that won't be Chivas USA next year, a team that we're going to call the LA Goats or the Escape Goats or whatever we're calling them in 2014. For that team to have those fans who are obviously committed and are going to put this together. Now, again, they may not garner much support. I don't know how much money they'll raise. I'm not going to laugh at it. I don't think it's destined for success, but it is good to see. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, Peter Karl from American Football Movie. will join us. We'll talk through the campaign at Indiegogo and the filmmaking process going all over Latin America ahead of the World Cup. Don't go anywhere. Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Internet's got to process everything for switch back.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on NASN with Jason Davis.
Joined now via Skype by Peter Karl, one of the gentlemen behind the American football movie, a documentary and web series that is exploring Latin American soccer culture through an expedition from the United States to Brazil, 7,000 miles, 10 countries, one goal. That's a very good slogan you got there, Peter.
Thanks, man. The clothes hanger, right?
So at this point in the process, and Peter's here to talk about the movie, talk about the process, also to talk about the Indiegogo campaign, which is ongoing, 7 days left. They're past the halfway point, which is a good sign. But we need to make that push. Got to get this movie funded so we can get it out there. I'm excited about this, Peter. What is the premise? What was the original thought behind the American football movie?
Okay, so the original thought happened about a year and a half ago or so, when we started getting serious about going to the World Cup, and we were thinking, let's do a road trip. But this was like three, best friends, but we're all involved in journalism, filmmaking, whatever. And then we quickly started thinking, like, wait a minute. By that point, we're probably all going to want to quit our jobs, and so let's make this a journalistic, a filmmaking experience. Sure. And we got the ball rolling, and we said, listen, there's a potential that 10 countries from this continent are going to be at that World Cup. That's a whole lot. There's 32 teams. It's almost a third. Let's go to each of them. Let's try to go to each of them and do an expose on each one of their soccer culture and see what we can learn from it. And did some research for, like, look at this. We're American soccer is so impacted by these cultures that this has to happen. Someone has to do this. We felt like.
No, absolutely. I think the that notion that while it's an exploration of the culture all the way down the Americas to Brazil, what you're sort of doing is, putting a mirror on American soccer culture, because we're trying to take it all in from from everywhere. And we focus too much, Peter, and I think a lot of people would admit this, we focus too much on the European influences, specifically the English influence, and maybe miss out on everything that comes from south of our borders.
Right. And it's, right beneath our nose in many ways. And you're right. European football is amazing. It fascinates everyone. It got me into soccer. And, we should take a lot of inspiration from them. But, maybe it's the language barrier. Maybe it's just cultural barriers. But soccer is a great way to break those down. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're going to go try to do in our expedition down south. Because last year I spent the year in Colombia. I got to live in Bogota, which was amazing. And just the experience of being surrounded by that Latino passion for the game is so infectious. And, being surrounded by soccer passion in general is like infectious, and getting the soccer bug is the best kind of disease.
Right.
So, we figure every one of these is gonna have a similar story to tell. So we're gonna go try and do it.
So in terms of the nuts and bolts filmmaking, what's the plan when you get to each place, and how do you go about finding what will make for good filmmaking?
Right. Good question. That is the logistical complication we've been trying to sort out the last year or so. So we've made our contacts in just about all of these countries. Certain people to talk to, certain people who will try to help take us in or introduce us to more people. And kind of those keystone interviews we want to kind of look at these cultures through these people who have an authentic perspective. And then a lot of it is on the ground, talking to people. Finding a good emotional story that relates to the, what the distinct soccer culture in that country, or the story that we're trying to tell. Each one has so many different, such a history with the game.
Right.
So each country, we're trying to find someone to kind of look through that lens. It's, in the same vein as a lot of those cool travel documentary kind of shows. They find a journalist, they find someone who's kind of a mover and shaker in each country, and they know the story better than I can't go in there and tell you guys about it. I need somebody else to tell me about it.
Right. Absolutely. Your role as a filmmaker is to document this, not necessarily to tell the story. So, I don't know what, again, you mentioned the logistics of it, and I don't know exactly how you guys went about it. And I'm sure you found varying people to help you out, but it occurs to me that, and this again is about the reflection and sort of the impact of these cultures on American soccer. You could find someone who has been involved in American soccer, played in MLS, been a coach, been here for a long time, from every one of these countries, right?
Totally. In fact, one of the people I'm trying to line up an interview with in LA before we leave is Wilmer Cabrera, because he's got his foot in the youth system here, and now with Chivas. Well, yeah, Chivas. And
for the time being, Peter
played for America de Cali, and he's he's a great person to speak on that kind of subject. Our time frame is a little bit short. We hope we can make it happen while we're in LA. But that's one example, and a lot of these people in all these countries are involved with American soccer or can speak about it. Tim Vickery is obviously not American, but actually Trevor helped us with the contact with him, and we're lining up a good interview with him when we're in Brazil. So we've got some good people that are well placed to talk about the impact.
The nature of the interview, getting into the culture. I mean, you obviously can't go. This is a wide ranging movie. You can't go super in depth on everything, but I love the idea of sort of seeing the similarities and highlighting the differences at the same time.
Absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why we want to do a webisode series while we're traveling. As hard as that might be to produce, that won't be as shiny and pretty, I don't think, just given the logistics. But we're determined to put together a 3 to 5 minute webisode from each country to especially take advantage of the hype like leading up to the World Cup, and then afterwards really sit down and dig into making a more circular narrative, a more beautiful film, I guess you can say.
Yeah, well, just to make sure that I understand and the listeners understand, the 10 countries we're talking about are the 10 countries from the Americas that are qualified for the World Cup.
Yes, exactly. That are qualified for the World Cup. We're starting in LA. We will cross into Latin America with a bunch of Cholos fans and go to a Cholos match.
Excellent.
Then we fly over to Mexico City. We'll do. Actually, I think we might be talking to your next guest. In fact, Tom Marshall.
Yeah, good guest.
We'll do some talk about Mexico and the World Cup. Then totally honest, Honduras is looking on the fence, sadly.
Okay.
For budgeting and few logistical reasons, but there's still a shot. We're still trying to work it in.
But you're going to work on Honduras. Let's just leave it there for now. Okay.
I don't want to say that's entirely our fault. It might be some of Honduras' fault.
Get your act together, Honduras. They want to put you in a movie.
I have heard from some Hondurans who aren't too happy about that, so I'll try to make them happy.
Okay.
But in Costa Rica, we're speaking to I think this is a really cool story. The owner of Herediano is an American guy from Utah.
Okay.
And he swooped in and kind of saved that club a few years ago. And I think without really knowing what it was going to come with, he became a massive celebrity. So he's a really nice guy. His name's Dave Patey. So he's gonna welcome us in, or so it sounds, and show us around.
How did I not know that? That seems like one of those things that would have a greater profile. I don't know why I didn't. Maybe
I know.
Maybe,
I gotta credit my partner here, Sam, for digging that one up. And I hope I didn't just give up an exclusive. But.
Yeah, well, okay. I mean, I won't reach out until you guys are done.
No, go for it, whatever.
Well, there was just to sort of along the same lines at one point, and I don't even remember how this got out there, but there's the American guy that is that plays soccer in Afghanistan, and he kind of blew up, and he got a profile in Sports Illustrated, and ESPN did a piece on, and it was one of those things like I didn't no idea that guy was there. Now it's a little different than owning a club, but now that you've put the word out that Herediano is an American, I think this is gonna go wide. Hopefully, the Power of Soccer Morning doesn't ruin your movie here, Peter. But
he's a cool story. There's some stuff out there about him, but he's a pretty extraordinary guy. He's got like 9 kids. He moved them all to Costa Rica to like learn Spanish, and then he bought this club, and now he's awesome. A local celebrity. And he didn't even like soccer before that.
That's amazing. So Costa Rica, the American owner.
Into Colombia, which is I can't wait for. We're spending quite a bit of time there. We got a few cool stories. We got a connection who knows the Valderramas.
Oh.
So we might try and have a little visit with the Valderramas.
That would be amazing.
Fingers crossed that P-Bay's home, but I don't know. Then to Bogota, where we'll be doing a lot of focusing, and Cali, hopefully, where we'll be focusing on the kind of the resurgence of Colombian football and after its darker years in the 90s. And, they're back in the World Cup after 16 years, and that's just
huge.
We like to say that football explains the world and all that. And at Colombia, I think it's pretty applicable after what they've been through. So we're all rooting for them, or at least I am. Then to Ecuador. Our producer's girlfriend is Ecuadorian, thank God. So we've got some good connections there. Then Chile, and then over to Argentina, hopefully not hopefully, we are doing a story on the Barras Bravas and supporter culture there. How it can be so amazing inside stadiums sometimes with the pageantry and the passion, but it's, pretty ugly.
Yes.
It can get kind of ugly.
Can get ugly.
And, we want as much passion as we can in this country, but, we tend to draw a thick line, which is pretty good, but it's good to know where crossing it comes in,
Sure.
Then to Uruguay, and then into Brazil. And Brazil will be there for hopefully the entire World Cup. And what we want to do is kind of shift maybe from doing these like 3 to 5 minute exposés and kind of going into more of an independent news source on the ground, trying to stick our noses in places we might not, gringos shouldn't be. We'll see. and give you guys an honest look at what's actually happening there. I'm sure there'll be a lot of that given the, social media these days and the media frenzy that will be in World Cup.
Sure, but hey, look, if we can lock you up as you're going to put all this stuff out on YouTube and the web and everything, but if we can lock you up for appearances while you're in Brazil.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I would love to do that. I would love to check in with you.
Absolutely. That would be fantastic. I mean, that's the thing about this World Cup and why it's interesting. You're going to do all of this and then end up there where, this is the most passionate football country in the world. No one doubts that. And everybody would think that this is where you want to have your biggest soccer party, if possible. And there's all this other stuff that comes with it. And while some of it may seem tangentially related to football or soccer, it's all part of that culture and it's all woven into the same fabric.
Right, exactly. And I mean, soccer to us, I think, to everyone is one of those universal languages, like food and music and things like that. It's a great vehicle to look at a culture through. And, there's a lot of these travel documentaries and shows that use food, music to look at all these cultures, and why not do one with soccer? You know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You know, say it goes big. I would imagine someone would try to replace us with some British people to have a more authentic voice.
You're not football enough. You're just not football.
Yeah,
enough.
exactly.
No, let's hopefully that doesn't happen. Look, I mean, this is again, you know, not to make you guys just one more thing that's happening, but I mean, you're and this is obviously a passion project, but there is an element of every single time we can add an American voice to the world discussion, not just to what happens here, but to the world discussion and everything that goes on with this sport in all parts of the globe, then that's good for us as Americans. I mean, not to be selfish about it, but I need you out there making this movie, Peter. Just like I think some people might need me sitting here talking about this sport on a worldwide basis every day.
Exactly, yeah. You know, small victories. We'll get there eventually.
Yeah, hopefully. All right.
One of the cool things that on that note is that we are American soccer. It's one of those things where America can't really impose itself on the rest of the world. We're kind of just a sponge for everyone else right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I love about it. And that's one of the things that Klinsmann has brought in. Since he's come in, he's really opened the borders. And you know, the U.S. soccer team is more of a melting pot, more a representation of the melting pot that we are as a country than ever before. And a huge part of that, especially in the academies, is this Latino culture. And and one way to put it is we're kind of following the ingredients from the source to the table in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a mission of the
now
project.
is the time where you sell people on getting involved, going to the Indiegogo campaign, learning about the movie, and supporting it. Here you go. Here's your platform. Give me
my shameless promotion.
Give me your pitch. Give me your elevator pitch right now, Peter.
Okay. Well, we're off to explore Latin American soccer culture and its impact on the U.S. You know, and we think it's an important thing to help the game grow in our country and just to expand our awareness of the sport on this continent, which, you know, tends to get ignored sometimes, or it can cast under the shadow of European football. And so we're going to go connect with these cultures and try and break down some barriers through the lens of soccer. On the Indiegogo, you can watch video. You can see there's a lot of cool perks. Soccer.com has helped us out with a few things. George Quarashi at Howler has donated a few magazines, and there's a lot of cool stuff on there. You can go check it out. There's another video. There's my big face talking to you about trying to reach a goal by Saturday so we can cut our producer's hair into one of David Beckham's hairstyles.
Awesome. You
know, we're trying it all, but any support, any promotion is very valuable to us, and we hope it pans out.
I'm looking at it now. These perks are excellent. The t-shirts are very nice. Very, very classy. You got scarves on offer at one tier. That's the soccer.com stuff you mentioned. Obviously, Howler. George has been fantastic, sort of helping obviously we all helped George out when he got going with Howler. Now he's helping everybody else out. A fantastic kind of a credit to the community as it exists. And there's the list, the scope you guys cover and the rundown of what you've got is exhaustive. I mean, you can learn everything you want, everything you want to know about this movie. You're not going in blind here, just handing people money to make a movie without a plan. These guys have a plan. They're going to make this movie that's good. And again, if you doubt any of the filmmaking chops, go watch some of the video that they've shot on the YouTube page, or where I guess they should go to AmericanFootballMovie.com to find that stuff, right?
Yeah, on the blog there's some other content. There's some stories I did in Colombia when I was working for a news station there, if you want to see the journalistic side. And then there's the video of the American Outlaws tailgate, which came out really nice. And we're gonna have another one up. Our producer was just in El Salvador on a church mission, and he shot a bunch of really good footage.
I think that's already up, as a matter of fact, because I think I believe that's already up. I saw it on a YouTube, somebody's YouTube page. That may be there. Maybe I'm wrong, but definitely go check out the Indiegogo campaign, which the link is going to be on American Football Movie, FUTBOL. So do it that way. Peter, best of luck, man. 7 days to go. I know it can happen. Hopefully the Soccer Morning community rallies behind this movie. It's definitely a worthy effort to support. Thank you for your time, man. Best of luck.
No, thank you for having me on, guys. Have a great show.
No problem. Let's take a break. When we come back, Tom Marshall, aforementioned Tom Marshall, will join us. We'll talk Mexican soccer with him, as we always do. Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on NASN with Jason Davis.
Joined now by our friend Tom Marshall, Mexico World Cup on Twitter, expert on the Mexican game, covering things from down there. Guadalajara, I believe, is where you are, correct, Tom?
I think so, yeah.
You think so?
I believe so.
Last time you checked, last time you looked out the window, it was still Guadalajara. So Tom is here. There's a lot to cover in Mexican soccer. I think at least down there for the moment. One of the biggest stories is Chicharito Hernandez and his status at Manchester United. And this is not necessarily new, but it's been a little while since he's seen the field, Tom. And I imagine there's some consternation over how informed Chicharito is going to be with the national team game coming up. It's back to the forefront.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it doesn't need repeating how big Chicharito's been just for the Mexican game over the last few years. Less than 3 years ago, starting a Champions League final. And he's not played for Manchester United now in the last 3 games. He's coming now to the Mexican national team next week, and just completely out of rhythm. So this is obviously the only FIFA date before the World Cup. So just a massive game for him in the national team. And Herrera, to be fair to him, has defended him and said he's working hard and he's gonna. We can't forget his history in the national team, stuff like that. So it looks like he's going to give him his chance, but just a massive game next week for Chicharito.
This is again, this is not necessarily a new development. His minutes at United have been tough to come by. He's scored a couple of goals, if I remember correctly, but he's a super sub. I mean, he comes on late. He maybe gets a goal. That doesn't really instill confidence that, as you said, his rhythm is going to be there. And it's not like he's played that well for the national team over the course of how long has it been since he's really been in form with L3?
I think since probably late 2012, isn't it? I mean, 2013 was pretty much a disaster for everyone. Very few players, got through that. But I mean, I think the thing is, even aside from the national team, he's not necessarily been in the best form, but he is proven in the Premier League, proven in the Champions League, and I think more than anything now, it's also like, from a Mexican standpoint, it's like, well, people want to see him play now. People are just absolutely sick of him, not playing, and it's it seems like it's now time for him to move on, to a club where he is a lot more likely to get playing time. I mean, at United now, he could come on this weekend, score 3 goals, and he still wouldn't be in the team next week. It's just doesn't seem to be that kind of, I don't know.
Well, I mean, look, we can lay it at the feet of David Moyes. Obviously the player has to take some sort of responsibility, and there's always going to be a question of. But then again, I mean, this is a very talented team. It's Manchester United, whether they're in 7th place or not. They're still Manchester United, which is why it was such a big deal he landed there in the first place. But I guess the question now is, we went through the winter transfer window with questions of whether or not he might move on. I think Monaco may have been mentioned, a couple of other clubs. Was the decision to stay, was that his? Was that United's? Is there some sense in Mexico that he made the wrong choice?
Yeah, actually, his agent gave a really good interview to ESPN, and he said, he sat down with Manchester United, the agent, talked through the options, and Manchester United were adamant he wasn't moving in the last winter transfer window. So I think it was the club basically saying, you're not going anywhere. And I've seen Chicharito on Instagram come up with, just a few Carlos Vela-esque statements, a bit vague, like saying, one day the truth will come out and stuff like this. and so there's something going on behind the scenes. And I think, the agent also said there's a couple of teams in Spain, Germany, Italy, France,
There has to be demand. I mean, that's the thing. There has to be demand, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, look at it just from a marketing point of view, just massive, just so marketable. And then, his goal scoring record, I think it's 127 minutes per goal in the Premier League. So, not many players can boast that,
Again, I mean, this is just another in sort of a long list of things that have impacted Mexico over the course. You mentioned 2013, a forgotten year, qualifying by the skin of their teeth, and now the work is beginning. The idea is, let's build some momentum ahead of the World Cup. As you said, one of the problems is there's only one FIFA date, and it's coming up on March 5th. What can Herrera get done in this particular game? What will he be focusing on? Is it just a matter of putting out what he has is his, whatever he can get to be his best 11? Is he going to give Chicharito a real strong run out because he's Chicharito, or is that, would it be better for him to sort of split things and give somebody else a look with the first team because there may be form issues in the World Cup?
I think all the European players are going to get minutes, and I wouldn't be surprised if almost all of them started. So they've got 8 Europe-based players in the squad. And I think what the big thing in this game for Herrera is obviously his 5-3-2 system. He needs to see that those players can adapt to his style and in that system. And that'll be the big thing, because there's only one game before he names his squad. So I think all the European players, Guardado, obviously Chicharito, Ochoa, Moreno, Hector Herrera, they'll all be starting. Giovanni Dos Santos, and then, it seems a bit unfair when you've got a 4-year World Cup process, and these players who are doing, a lot of them now decent things in Europe, and all of a sudden it comes down to one game. But I think it is a massive game for these European-based players,
right? Because Herrera has his system and the 5-3-2, and these players, the European-based players, weren't part of him coming in and sort of saving the team and getting past New Zealand. So this is a matter of putting them into a system they're unfamiliar with. They may be able to adapt, but only in a one game opportunity. That doesn't smell like a recipe for success, Tom.
No, I mean, but this is Herrera. This is what he's going to do. He's going to, the system's going to take priority over the players, and it's going to be absolutely fascinating to watch Mexico and to see, when that World Cup squad announcement is made, just how many European players there will be, because obviously against New Zealand he didn't call up any, which was absolutely massive at the time. And I wouldn't be surprised if there aren't many Europe-based players in the Mexico's World Cup squad. I mean, we'll see on Wednesday how well the players do, but it would not surprise me one bit.
Herrera has guts. We know that. I mean, if he believes that it's best to go with his domestic heavy squad because they're best suited to run what he wants to run, then he'll do that, and Mexico will live or die with it. Let's move on to some club topics in Mexico, and the one that most directly is of interest to people in this country is the sale of Chivas USA. Jorge Vergara finally being. I imagine that most people view this as being pushed out, although he may have reached the end of his rope. I'm interested in the take and the impression that Guadalajara fans, the Chivas Guadalajara fans, have of this end of that experiment and how they felt all along through the entire process.
Yeah, I think most people in Guadalajara and Chivas fans just never understood what the point of having an MLS club was. It just never had any benefits, It's like, who's benefiting from Vergara having this club, you know what I mean? So I think that's the overriding sentiment. But I think at the minute it's, a lot of, Chivas fans just down on Vergara. I mean, they have been for a while now, and they're seeing this, and the press are seeing the Chivas US sale as a failure, as an example of Vergara making these bold, brash statements, and then it failing. You know what I mean? Like the team, like between Chivas USA and Chivas Guadalajara, one title. I mean, at the end of the day, you can build all the stadiums you want, but fans won titles and winning soccer matches, and that's what Chivas haven't done enough of. Either in MLS or in Mexico. So, it's just everything down on Vergara at the minute. It's really negative.
I'm sure if Guadalajara had been successful through the bulk of the Chivas USA era, then it wouldn't have been much of an issue, that fans could sort of say, well, that's his other little thing he's doing. Don't know really what it's all about, but at least his club in Mexico is successful. But we know that they've had scrapes with relegation, and they haven't won anything, and they've been at the bottom of the table. Right now, as things sit, and I don't know if this is any credit to Vergara, and you can tell me, 6th place, that's not terrible. I mean, obviously, Guadalajara is a much bigger club and would love to be at the top, but things improving a little bit, at least on the field?
Yeah.
You're not sure. All right.
No, they definitely are. It's just the only thing is, it's like, I don't know, Chivas is such a massive club, even though they're in 6th and they are picking up points. I mean, they're now getting criticised because they're not playing good enough football.
Fun.
I think it's unfair, but I think they've come from like being, in the bottom two to now fighting for the playoffs. And yeah, they've lost against Toluca and they've lost against Cruz Azul. But those are the two top teams. And Chivas, just on paper, isn't one of the best teams in the Liga MX. I don't think it's any more complicated than that.
Mm-hmm. Right. At this point, they've scored as many goals as they've allowed. They're in 6th place. They have 12 points and tied with America at this point on points. So I don't know what that necessarily means, but as this Clausura plays out, we'll see where Chivas lands. Now, speaking of the Clausura, the strong teams, we've got Champions League coming up in CONCACAF. Clearly, the MLS teams always have a difficult out when it comes to playing Mexican sides. But we've got the MLS champion going up against the number one best team in Mexico right now in Cruz Azul. And there's always that issue of MLS teams having to work their way into a season while Mexico is in full swing in the Clausura. Is there any conceivable way Sporting Kansas City, who again is a good side and maybe against a different Mexican team would have a chance, can upset Cruz Azul?
I mean, Cruz Azul at the minute are just absolutely flying. I mean, obviously there's not, just the difference between the leagues. If isn't that big, so obviously it's going to be you expect it to be quite tight. But at the end of the day, Cruz Azul are just absolutely flying. I mean, you just look at the league table: 8 games played, 7 wins, 17 goals scored, 3 against. I mean. Three goals given away in 8 games. He's just absolutely flying. The team's confident. Jesus Corona in goal is just unbelievable. Luis Fernando Tena, the Olympic coach, has just really seemed to, change the mentality at Cruz Azul, and they seem a lot like stronger now. And the word coming out of the club is that ready to fight for a title. So yeah, I think this game comes on paper at a bad time for Sporting, just because Cruz Azul have started this Clausura just so well. It's and Marco Fabian, people remember him from the Olympics, and he's moved on from Chivas, and he just seems to be just absolutely flying at the minute as well, and in great form.
You've got the San Jose Earthquakes, who have to go up against Toluca, who's only lost once in the Clausura so far, and is in 2nd place and has scored 13 goals, and so that's not much of an easier task, and I don't know that anybody rates the Earthquakes on the same level as Sporting, and I don't want to say it's a foregone conclusion, but obviously that's extremely difficult for the Earthquakes. I don't know that there'd be a whole lot of doubt there on Toluca's end. And then the Galaxy in Tijuana, and this is the one that people are going to be looking at, not just because it's an American team against a Mexican team, as we see in this tournament, but because it's the Southern California Baja connection, and the region is close, and you can imagine that we're going to get a good amount of fans traveling in both directions. How much, and we still have a couple weeks out, but how much of a story will that be? I mean, I know you're removed from Tijuana, Tom, but how much of a story will that be for Xolos against the Galaxy?
No, I was actually up there last week in Tijuana, so chatting to people in the club, and no, it's massive. It's absolutely massive. The Club World Cup, every Mexican team wants to get there, just like the MLS teams. I mean, yeah, the rivalry is big. I mean, we've seen players like Paul Arriola, where there's been this bit of friction between the two clubs about, where he'd go. Obviously you've got the Hercules Gomez, used to play for Galaxy as well. So yeah, it's all building up nicely. And Xolos, I mean, you speak to people in the club, come out, and they consider Southern California their territory. You know what I mean? They consider it fair game to go and scout players there. Same with Arizona, and they are going to do that, and not just players, but also fans. They really want to get not just Americans with Mexican heritage, but American from different backgrounds,
sure,
down to Tijuana to go and watch games. I mean, that's the ambition the club have. They are a very ambitious club, especially in terms of youth structures. So this game against Galaxy is. It's massive. I mean, I think I'm already excited about it, and I think people down there are as well. Although the team isn't playing very well, which is a bit of a problem. I mean, 3-0 loss to Chiapas, who aren't considered one of the best teams in the Mexican League. I mean, on last Friday. So Xolos, I mean, at the minute there is a bit of, I don't know. It doesn't seem to be too well within the squad, and with the manager Cesar Farias, quite polemic manager, Venezuelan, who was head of the national team. So, I think Galaxy at the minute, they'll be the MLS team in this CONCACAF Champions League that'll be really kind of fancying the chances right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't go so far as to make them the favorites, because I just don't know that we can ever do that when American teams are facing Mexican teams. But of the three left in this tournament, the Galaxy are the club that seem to have the best shot to advance, just based on where their competition is in their season right now. I have a question on Twitter before I let you go, Tom. This is from Vince up in Toronto. He wants to know who you think will start in goal for Mexico in the World Cup, Ochoa or Corona?
I think it'll be Corona. I think Miguel Herrera knows him from the time together at Tecos. I don't think he completely trusts Ochoa. So yeah, I think it's going to be Corona, and I think it's one of the most difficult decisions out of any position Mexican national team at the minute.
Is Ochoa? I don't want to be unfair here, but is Ochoa the type of goalkeeper, having been number one, having with his European pedigree, is he the type of guy who can handle that role?
I mean, this is definitely an issue, Jason. I mean, definitely. I mean, this will be his third World Cup on the bench if he goes to Brazil and he isn't the number one. So, I mean, you can't imagine him being too happy, can you? Happy camper down there in Brazil, being the number two once again. So, yeah, I mean, that's going to be Herrera's going to have to go and talk to him and say, look, you're with us 100%. You might not be starter. But, I mean, yeah, I think it's something that he'd have to talk to before the World Cup and before the squad announcement.
Yeah, I think Herrera would have to be confident that Ochoa's not going to go and make waves while he's down there talking to the press. We know that Mexico, when they go places, they need to behave themselves, Tom. Let's see that happen before we get into whether or not they can actually make some noise in this tournament. And at their best, they clearly could. Tom Marshall, Mexico World Cup on Twitter, covering Chivas de Guadalajara, clearly, but also Mexican soccer and the Mexican national team. Thanks for your time as always, Tom. I appreciate it.
Cheers, Jason. Thanks very much.
Talk to you soon. There goes Tom Marshall. Good stuff as always from him. 10 minutes until we get Leander Schaerlaeckens on and we talk a little Champions League action. Do I still have the Champions League? Yeah, I do. I still have this. I forgot that I had this on my board here. Champions League music. Just revel in it for a second. Everybody loves it so much. Your favorite song, Trevor? Your number one favorite song? Nope. Oh, you got another favorite song? All right. Your favorite soccer song? Oh, overrated. Trevor the musician says this is overrated. Okay. Just go ahead and we'll get that out of here. All right. In the 10 minutes between now and Mr. Schaerlaeckens, we'll open up the phone lines. 347-756-6276 is the number. Give me a call. Tell me what you want to talk about. One thing we'll definitely get into with Leander is those Roy King comments. The comments that the Premier League is not the best league in the world, that we've been brainwashed, and that it's about marketing. I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it up in front of me. But it's essentially what he said. He said, you've been brainwashed to believe the Premier League is the best league in the world, and this is in the aftermath of Manchester United falling to Olympiacos. It's not. It's about marketing. Now, this is a multi-layered answer, trying to figure out whether or not he's right, wrong, in the middle. It's a subjective measure. We don't have a way to compare leagues directly that is going to give us a satisfactory answer as to what league is the best league. These things happen within themselves. Then these teams a couple of the teams, the best ones, go out into Europe. They win or they lose based on their own individual strengths, weaknesses, current situation, intrigue around the club, confidence level. Does that relate? Does that one result, Manchester United going to Greece, losing to Olympiacos, does that one result say anything in particular about the strength of the Premier League? Manchester United is in 7th place. 7th. They're not the top team in the league. They're not the 3rd team in the league. They're not the 4th team in the league. They're in 7th. So if the 7th best team in the Premier League goes and plays the undefeated Greek league leaders, and loses, is that really any indication of anything when it comes to league strength? I'm of the opinion, and there's no empirical evidence for this, but I'm of the opinion that from top to bottom, the Premier League is the best league in the world. I think it's probably week in and week out, the competition is among the most entertaining in the world. Now, I will take the opinion of somebody who watches many more leagues than me and accept their opinion and maybe change mine if they make a compelling case. But again, there's no direct way to sort of compare these leagues and say, well, which one's the best league in the world? But Roy Smith at the Times has presented a possible way to check this out, to figure this out. Let me pull this up here. He's got a plan for a competition that would help determine the best leagues in the world. Not the world, Europe, because this isn't about the world. This is about Europe. That's the other part of this, clearly. It's about Europe. Because we work from this basic assumption. The best league in the world has to be in Europe, right? Okay, and now once we're in Europe, once we've established, then it's a good point. Look, there are other leagues around the world that are of notable quality, but no one's going to stand up and say, well, Brazil, the Brazilian league, that's one of the best leagues in the world. No, it's not. No, it's a good league. It's not one of the best leagues in the world. It depends on how deep you want to go. You're going to get through 4, 5, 6 European leagues before you get to Brazil, right? 5, 6, Argentina, more, says Trevor. Okay, we'll go down the list. I mean, look, the England, Germany, Italy, Spain. No particular order here, by the way. England, Germany, Italy, Spain, France. What am I missing? I'm missing a bunch. France. Okay, I said France. Russia, says Trevor. Portugal, says Trevor. Ukraine, says Trevor. Ukraine better than Brazil. Okay. Again, it's a subjective opinion. Trevor's saying this. He doesn't have direct way to compare these leagues. The Club World Cup doesn't do it. The Champions League within Europe might give you a little bit of a notion, but it's not enough evidence. And again, we sort of have these other lesser leagues mucking up the possibility of determining which league is the best league in the world. Just because Dortmund and Bayern Munich make the Champions League final doesn't mean that from top to bottom, the Bundesliga is better than the Premier League, does it? Vince from Toronto, producer Vince, what's up?
Oh, hey, Jason. I don't agree with Roy Keane and what he has to say. I mean, I agree with what you say where when you look at the Premier League from top to bottom, it has the most talent compared to, let's say, La Liga or the Bundesliga. When I look at, let's say, Crystal Palace or Sunderland or Fulham, I think of them of having better players and being able to compete at a higher level than, let's say, Real Valladolid or Rayo Vallecano or Nuremberg or it's a really bad team in the Bundesliga, Braunschweig, that's the team. Mm-hmm. Just when you compare them, the Premier League's lower teams are better than the other league's lower teams. Do you understand?
But again, Vince, just whether we share that opinion or not, there's no way to know for sure. And even in the competition, even like a competition like the Europa League, which is going to take your next tier of teams, not your best teams, but your next tier of teams, and toss them into a European competition. Even that sometimes you get, there are too many variables at play. You end up with teams from Eastern Europe in leagues that aren't high enough quality that can make it a little bit of noise, that can do something of note. And we'll see Champions League teams drop down in that competition and end up winning it. And what does that really mean? If Juventus goes on and wins the Europa League, what does that mean exactly? I don't know that it means anything.
No, that's true, Jason. I mean, the way I look at it is that England may not necessarily have the best teams in terms of talent. I mean, that obviously belongs to the two favorites, Real Madrid and Bayern Munich. But the drop-off of quality isn't as high from the top to the bottom as it is in the other leagues. Right. I don't know how to explain it necessarily. It's just let's say it's a pie chart, 100% or whatever. The slices would be more closer together in the Premier League than it would be in La Liga or in the Bundesliga.
I agree. Here, while you're on the line, let me lay out what Roy Smith at the Times, and again, the Times is behind a paywall. This happened to be free for a little while, so this is why I have it. Roy Smith at the Times is proposing a tournament at the end of the 2014-15 season when there's no major European or global competition internationally. He says you invite teams from the Premier League, the Bundesliga, the Serie A, and La Liga. You each one plays in a round-robin group against those sides who finished in the same position as them in the other leagues. So the champions all play each other, and then you go down the line, and that way you have a direct correlation. You can say, look, the 5th place team in the Premier League beat the 5th place team in La Liga. That means the Premier League, at least in that position, is better. That kind of thing. This is as close as you're going to get.
Yeah, no, like, honestly, I don't expect the top England teams to beat the top Spanish teams.
Right.
But as you get down to that 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and down, I'd probably guess that the English teams are going to be the ones who are predominantly winning those matches.
I would think that, again, this is our opinion. I believe you're probably right, but there's no, again, because there's no direct way to tell, we have to guess at it. And Rory's got this idea. It's it's interesting. I don't think it could ever come off, and I would have questions over how seriously would these teams take this tournament if you did something like this. And he talks about limiting the number of games so that it's not a massive burden on these clubs. But seriously, if you said to these teams, let's create this round robin tournament or this round robin competition to compare leagues and get strength and blah blah blah. Maybe you could even make it. You could even say that UEFA, if they buy in, will use some of this to determine coefficient in Champions League spots. Then I guess you might have some real serious competition. But anything outside of the league and the established international competitions is treated as not that important. And this includes the Club World Cup. I mean, not that none of the teams go to it and don't want to win it, but come on. Nobody goes to the Club World Cup if you're Barcelona or Manchester United or whoever's coming out of Europe and thinks to themselves, man, we really have to win this. We're going to put out our best 11. We're going to go all out. The intensity is going to be high, especially when you're playing in somewhere like Dubai or Tokyo.
No, of course. I mean, I never look at the Club World Cup as being a gauge at all, especially since the best teams start way later in the tournament anyway. So, I mean, and I don't even pay attention at all. Like, I always wake up and think, oh, the game already happened. Okay, what are you going to do about it?
By the way, I think I'm shorting Manchester United. They might be in 6th place right now, not 7th, but I have to look at my table. I didn't pull up the table. I just last time I checked, I thought I saw them in 7th. So that tells you how important they are right now, Manchester United.
Well, Jason, I have a question for you.
Quickly.
This is a terrible example, but I just want to know, as a U.S. fan, you've seen Brian McBride's Fulham and Steve Trundle's Hanover, who I believe both of them were relatively mid-table clubs during their time. Which team would you say was the better one?
Again, I mean, I don't know. I mean, at some points, Fulham. I don't know. I honestly don't know, Vince, and I'm not going to just throw it out there and say that I think Fulham would win or whatever. I mean, I think it would be a tight match because at that level they're going to be. I would say that I would guess Fulham has a little bit more top level talent, or at least the talent level at Fulham is just a little bit better than at Hanover overall. But that doesn't mean they're a better team, right? You
know what, Jason? I'm gonna go a little Jay Rodius on you right now.
All right, quick.
La Liga, Germany. They're front heavy teams. They're basically, let's say you have an athlete who's a smoker. He'll start off fantastic, but as time goes on, he will deteriorate in quality.
Right.
While the Premier League is, this guy's taking care of himself better. I mean, he won't necessarily start the race off that well, but as you go down the table, as he continues running, that conditioning will get him through.
All right, that's Vincent Toronto with his opinion on the differences between the Premier League and everybody else in Europe. It's Soccer Morning. When we come back, Leander Schaerlaeckens will ask him about this and the Champions League results. Don't go anywhere. Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on NASN with Jason Davis.
Happy to have on the phone with me now Leander Schaerlaeckens from Fox. Leander on Fox is his Twitter handle. Please go follow him. Leander, how are you, sir?
I'm well, Jason. How are you?
I'm good. We will certainly get to the best league in the world or the best league in Europe or however we want to frame this discussion. We'll get there eventually. But I feel like we need to talk about what actually happened in the Champions League this week before we go into that, as you called it before he came back, a morass. Yesterday's results, I guess I'll start with Real Madrid, 6-1 over Schalke, an absolute evisceration of the German side by Real Madrid. This is Real Madrid at the peak of their powers, is it not?
Certainly they're going better and better and better. The thing is, though, about the game is that Schalke was sort of hanging tough with them for sort of the first 30 minutes or so. They weren't taking their chances, and Real just has such transcendent players who just, they just don't pass up the opportunity to get on the scoreboard very much. And so they kind of ran away with it in the second half. But it was fairly even at first, but now obviously this tie is all but over.
Oh, yes, yeah. I mean, you wonder why they should even bother playing the second leg. But, Real Madrid, I guess what you're getting to there is, while we have, and there are amazing individual players across most of the favorites in this tournament, there's something about Real Madrid where not only are they an excellent team and play well as a team, if they need that moment, one player taking it on himself to create a goal, they've got so many guys that can do that.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, they're the team that's clinical and that sort of got that killer instinct. And I'm probably going to annoy a lot of people here, but I think they have more players that can make the difference and that can sort of deliver that one moment than any other team. And that includes Barcelona and Bayern Munich. Mm-hmm.
The other result from yesterday, Chelsea in Turkey, a 1-1 draw. What fascinated me about that game watching it, Leander, was the I can say tactical battle. I mean, you can put this on Mourinho and Mancini if you want to. I mean, obviously the players had a large role to play in it. But it seemed to kind of go for Chelsea for a long time, and then Galatasaray flipped a switch, and it was all about them, and it didn't even look like Mourinho's team was comfortable in the way we've seen Chelsea comfortable sitting back and absorbing pressure.
No, certainly, and maybe the environment played a part there because, as we all know, the arena in Istanbul, Turk Telekom Arena, I believe it's called, is a very daunting place to play, and once the crowd sort of gets going, that can really unsettle opposing teams, so that they really are a 12th man in that sense. I thought it was interesting to see the game turn into such a tactical battle because I think the knock on Mancini, and fairly so, has been that he's not all that strong tactically, and he's not had much success in Europe either with Inter Milan or with Manchester City. Mm-hmm. Always pretty much underperforming or flaming out very early. Because I think he's the sort of manager who does okay when he assembles a whole lot of talent and can sort of run over everyone domestically. But when it comes to Europe and you need to match up with teams and you can't just beat them by sheer talent, he runs into trouble. So he seems to have evolved a little in that sense.
Well, there was he makes a very early substitution in that game, sort of an admission that he had gotten it all wrong to start. And I'm not sure that was the turning point for Galatasaray, but it certainly helped stem the tide.
I think it did. I mean, once they sort of got a little bit of a crowd in midfield, and Chelsea had a lot more trouble sort of getting the ball moving around, and that did seem to make the difference. So in fairness to Mancini, I think he recognized what needed to change, and he made the right move, and that Mourinho didn't necessarily have an answer for that.
Now, that was the only draw we had in this round. Real Madrid, obviously, Olympiacos, the only home side to win.
Yeah.
What does that mean, Leander? Does that mean anything?
Well, it's pretty striking, I think, because I don't think going into this round of 16, anybody would have predicted that Olympiacos would be the only home team to win its game. I mean, pretty extraordinary, especially considering that they were thought to be the weakest team left in the tournament. And, of course, playing Manchester United, even if maybe this year that doesn't say all that much. But it really leaves you wondering, with 6 away teams winning and 5 of them winning by at least 2 goals, Only Atletico Madrid won just by 1-0 at AC Milan. You wonder if maybe the European game is polarizing further, where once again there's sort of a cream rising to the top, with really now just 5 or 6 teams capable of winning this thing, and the gap with everybody else getting ever bigger. I mean, this is maybe not a sufficient sample size to make that sort of conclusion, but if you look at just this round, it does seem to suggest that the gap maybe is getting bigger between certain teams.
Let me go through these very quickly. You tell me if the tie is over or not over. City Barcelona.
Over.
Bayer Leverkusen and Paris Saint-Germain, that's over, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Milan Atletico is not over.
No.
Okay, and Atletico at this point has hit a rough spot in the La Liga season. They just lost 3-0 on the weekend after coming away from they lost 3-0 on the weekend. Is Atletico good enough? I mean, Milan hasn't impressed anybody this season so far, and Seedorf is sort of working his way into that job. But is Atletico Madrid a good enough team to lock it down at home? Because, is Simeone going to go for anything here with a 1-goal lead and an away goal in his pocket?
I don't think he needs to. I don't think he will. And I think Atletico is strong enough defensively to sort of hold out. Partly also because I think Milan is not good enough offensively to break them apart.
Arsenal Bayern Munich, over, not over?
Not over.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you give Arsenal a chance in Germany in a month.
I mean, they did. They won there last year in this round, and obviously they didn't get the away goals that they needed. But I think they're still in this. They're not a high likelihood, but they're still in it.
Zenit and Dortmund.
Over.
Olympiacos, Manchester United, with the Greeks going to Old Trafford. We don't want to say it's over.
I wouldn't discount United, but I'd probably put it 70% odds at this point of Olympiacos advancing.
That's pretty stunning, and that obviously says a lot about where Manchester United is in this process. And you can't imagine it getting any easier for David Moyes, because there's only so much climbing up the table that Manchester United can do between now and the second leg against Olympiacos. It's not going to get any easier, and the heat's not going to be any less on David Moyes, considering United's league position.
No, absolutely. And United right now is 11 points out of fourth place with 11 games to go. And you figure typically, I mean, to use the old baseball anecdote, it takes about a week to catch up a game in the standings. I think in soccer, realistically, you can't hope to make up much more than a point every game. So they're going to have to really kill it for the rest of the season, even to get into the Champions League next year.
Now, obviously, Galatasaray Chelsea is not over, but at 1-1, Chelsea with an away goal, who should feel more confident? I guess, it's kind of hard not to say Chelsea at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, but then Galatasaray has all this experience that I think Chelsea, and this is something that Mourinho recognizes, kind of lacks at the European level. So it's with Drogba and Sneijder, they were pretty good last night. I think Galatasaray, I think that game's a toss-up.
And obviously Real Madrid and Schalke is double secret probation over. It's so over that, again, why even bother playing the second? How about this? Give me a prediction of the final aggregate scoreline in that tie.
8-1.
Wow. Okay, so Real Madrid comes home. They just kind of do their thing. They score a couple goals and they call it a day. They move on to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I say that because I think they'll rest some regulars and they'll play some of the younger guys maybe, and they'll win by 2-0 or something.
They'll still have an immense amount of talent on the field, but they will rest some of their regulars. All right, let's go into this discussion that came out of Manchester United's loss to Olympiacos. Roy Keane, television pundit, obviously, Manchester United great. Now a television pundit saying that he thinks the world has been brainwashed. I think we've been brainwashed by the idea that the Premier League is the best league in the world. Nonsense. It's the best brand, but we've seen over the last few weeks with a lot of the English teams struggling, that these teams have fallen behind the top teams in Europe and United in particular. Now, first of all, is he right to say that the Premier League is not the best league in the world?
Well, it's a question of semantics, like you pointed out earlier, and it's hard to measure. I would agree on the strength that I think you measure a league's strength by and large by its best teams.
Okay.
And if you go by that, then obviously right now Manchester United the Premier League is not the best league in the world. I think he's right to say that it's the strongest brand. I do think it's the strongest product, if not necessarily the strongest league, because what you get with the Premier League is that the games are perhaps more exciting than most other leagues because there is more of a competitive balance. And you see, I think when you watch the Premier League, if you turn on a game, you're less likely to get a dud than in any other league. And that's important. And I think that what your last caller pointed out also is that the bottom teams, sort of the bottom feeders of the Premier League, probably any other league, they are still mid-table teams. Mm-hmm. But if you start to look at, who has the best teams, who has the best players, that's probably not the Premier League, because if you look at the Golden Ball, this past year with Messi and Ronaldo and Ribéry being first, second, and third, or second, first, and third, respectively, none of those guys play in the Premier League. In the last two seasons, nobody from the Premier League made it into the FIFA Pro World 11, and from the looks of it now, really probably we're just going to have one English team in the Champions League quarterfinals. And last year in the Champions League, and let me pull it up here, there were just two English teams that made it to the knockout stages, and none of them made it to the quarterfinals. When just a few years ago, it was not uncommon to see three English teams in the semifinals.
Yeah, again, as you point out, it's semantics. I mean, I think we know that there are a handful or a couple of teams in the top leagues that are as good, if not better, than every team in the Premier League. I mean, certainly you're going to put a couple of German teams on that list, better than every team in the Premier League. Spain, France, you've got at least one, maybe two. In Italy, Italy's taking a step back, but there's still quality there. I guess that for me, when I think of best league, I tend to think of top to bottom quality. I mean, we're talking about that here, but for me, the Champions League does a poor job of representing an entire league. As you said, it represents the best teams, presents the best teams. It's just, I don't know, Leander. Again, there's no direct way to compare these things, and I think that in some ways, best brand is best league.
Perhaps. I mean, it's the most watchable league, certainly, and there are some teams in La Liga and in the Bundesliga that are terrible teams, and that by and large are not a lot of fun to watch. But between those two leagues, there are 5 teams that are better than any other team in the Premier League. So it really, again, it comes down to how you measure these things and how you want to, sort of put together the metrics on this, which is a hard thing to do.
It's one of those sports conversations that doesn't have an answer, that allows us to just go through all of these things. It's the same thing. Anytime you try to compare players from different eras, you can't do it. You just simply can't do it. Things have changed so much. And in this situation, what you've got is, these little bubbles, and occasionally they come together, but those teams that are playing each other may or may not be representative of the strength of the league. They can't, one team, Manchester United in this case, kind of spurring this comment, can't represent the Premier League. Although you could even flip that around and say, well, look, as a 6th place team, they sort of do represent the average level of the Premier League right now, and they got beat by the best team in Greece. What does that mean? Where do we put our finger on that?
Well, I mean, you could spin that around and say that Manchester United is the best 6th place team in Europe, probably, out of any European league.
Sure, you absolutely could do that. If you look at 6th place, and this is why I mentioned the Rory Smith column at the Times, where his idea is, hey, let's have direct, if you finish 6th in the Premier League, you'll play 6th in the Bundesliga and 6th in La Liga, and we can determine who's the best 6th place team, and then use that as evidence towards who's the best league.
Yeah, I mean, there's no real way to do this, I think, and to come up with any sort of answer that's conclusive or scientifically sound in any sort of way. Right. I mean, because then you've got other issues. You've got strength of schedule. You've got, in the Bundesliga, for instance, you've got sort of your top 2 teams, although Dortmund has fallen off a bit. But then you've got a crop of teams like Schalke and Leverkusen, and in some years Wolfsburg and all those teams that are sort of a really good second-tier teams that you don't really have in Spain you would have maybe Atletico and Valencia, but in Spain I think that second tier of teams is smaller, so then you've got a strength of schedule issue as well if you go just purely by the standings. Right,
absolutely, and England's got it has for a long time had a stratified top tier, and that second tier was was strong as well. Maybe not as, I don't know, as deep as what you've just mentioned in Germany. I mean, at some point it was, I don't know who you put in that group. Everton.
Everton, Newcastle, when they're running smoothly as they should. Liverpool, I would consider well, maybe not this year, but over the last few years, we've been a second-tier team. Already we're sort of running into problems just defining our definitions.
Yeah, because City was a second-tier or third-tier team and is now a first-tier team.
Well, exactly, and so was Chelsea until 10 years ago. So
exactly.
These things are so fluid that it's kind of in that sense a silly conversation to have, because next year everything could be different.
Well, and then there's the random or somewhat random and chaotic nature of the games to begin with. I mean, most of the time talent's going to win out, and we use this as hard evidence. Barcelona is better than City because they beat them 2-0 at the Etihad. Okay, maybe that's true, maybe that's not. But then you see something like when Chelsea wins the Champions League with a team that I'm not sure anybody thought was the best team in Europe. What does that mean, Leander?
Well, again, I mean, you're talking about sample size and potentially anecdotal evidence. And the sixth-place team in one league could have won, 60% of its games, and the sixth-place team in another league could have won only 45%, just sort of depending on how the league is dominated by certain teams. So it's a false equivalency.
Yeah, and even comparing point totals might not give you a clear picture. I mean, if it takes 90 points to win one league and 85 to win another, does that indicate that one is stronger?
Right, exactly. I mean, should winning 3 points against Almeria count the same as winning 3 points against Sunderland?
Yeah, I don't know, but this is fun. I like it. And look, I enjoy the open opinion element of it. And obviously working from this perspective, Leander, and you being European, you have a much wider base of knowledge than I'm working with. But I'm an English speaker who lives in the United States. What am I getting pushed? What's getting pushed on me more than anything else? It's going to be the Premier League, and that is obviously going to bias my perspective on who is not the best league. It's almost, and that's why when I say the best brand almost is the best league, at least depending, it depends on your perspective, but that's true to a certain extent with the Premier League.
Look, all I really know is that my league, the Dutch league, is not the best league.
Yes, but there's fun soccer happening in Holland. That's true, right?
There is. So then again, what's the best league? Is it the most fun league, the deepest league, the most balanced league?
It's for you to decide. And when I say you, I mean every individual out there listening or watching right now. It's for you to decide. Go. I mean, again, you can get your kicks out of conference football in England because it's it's live, it's local, it's right there. It's there's no pretense, whatever floats your boat. Leander,
and then the matter of taste comes into play. Do you like direct soccer? Do you like tiki-taka? Do you like this? Do you like that?
Right. Yeah. And the Premier League's calling card has always been its speed. And if you don't like the pace and power of English football, there are alternatives out there that may tickle your fancy, and certainly plenty of alternatives. Leander Schaerlaeckens from Fox. Go follow him, Leander, on Fox. Check out his work not only on Champions League and European football, but MLS as well as the season approaches. Leander, thank you very much for your time, man.
Thank you, Jason.
Talk to you soon. There goes our friend Leander. Fantastic discussion as always. Last couple minutes of the show here. I got to mention this story, and this came up a little bit on the Best Soccer Show last night, if you happen to listen to that. But I just read the comments today. Eric Ronaldo wants Freddy Adu to come to Atlanta and play for the Atlanta Silverbacks. I find that idea fascinating on a couple of different levels. Now, remember, Eric Ronaldo is going to be a part-time head coach with the Atlanta Silverbacks. He's going to show up on Fridays and run the team through their paces ahead of a weekend match. Otherwise, it's going to be assistants who will run training during the week while Eric is away in L.A. doing his day job as a Fox Soccer analyst. And this is the most mercurial figure American soccer has ever produced in Freddy Adu. Immensely naturally talented, has never managed to turn that into any sort of effective professional club experience. And now he's in England, having been unable to secure a contract with Blackpool, who he's been with for a couple of weeks now. And Eric Ronaldo says, hey, why don't you come here, play in the NASL with me? Here's his comments. I think he can still play at a high level. He proved to me he was capable of that against Mexico in the Gold Cup final in 2011. His ego can't get in the way because the level will be questioned, but he needs to find a team that wants him, and I want him. Look, Freddy Adu would bring a massive amount of interest to the Atlanta Silverbacks from people outside of the usual soccer circles. That's a benefit right there. That's part of the reason I think anybody would say a team in the second division should sign Freddy Adu. But I don't know that the NASL is really a place for him to rehabilitate his game. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm wary of Freddy Adu getting bored and it going south again. Freddy Adu not buying into what the program is at an NASL team who's going to draw 5,000 people for a home match. That doesn't seem to me like, and I'm not saying he's better than that. I'm not saying Freddy Adu is better than the NASL right now. It doesn't matter how much natural ability you have. If you can't bring it to bear in a game or on the field when it matters, then your level is where you get a contract offer. Right now, where is Freddy Adu going to get a contract offer? He has a couple of different options, I imagine. He can go play in a lesser league where he may make some money, say China, the UAE, or he can come back to the United States and slot himself into a lower division side like the Atlanta Silverbacks of the NASL. There may be a third option, but I don't know that the teams in question would be interested in him. It would be attaching himself to a team that's going to be in MLS in a couple of years, play the Orlando City card. But I don't know that they have any interest. They probably wouldn't. Because here's the problem. Again, he comes with baggage. It's not just Freddy Adu, the soccer player. Look at how good he can be with the ball. It's Freddy Adu, the ruined phenom, the unrealized potential. Freddy Adu, the guy who leaves. This is the story I heard about Freddy Adu. I think I heard this from George Qureshi, actually, of Howler Magazine. When George was in Greece, and he did a very cool little documentary series on Greek football for Kick TV. When he was in Greece, he got in contact with the club that Freddy Adu played for, their Aries. He called them up for something. I can't remember. And the people there, I guess the woman who runs so much of the club's business day to day, takes care of the players, asked where Freddie was. And George said, oh, he's playing for the Philadelphia Union in MLS. He's back in the U.S. She said, oh, well, because his car is still parked in the player's garage. And I don't think it was a cheap car. I don't remember exactly what it was. We're not talking about a beater. We're not talking about a whip. This is something nice. Freddie bought himself something nice, or leased himself something nice while he was in Greece. And he just leaves it there and takes off. Go back to the United States to try to rehabilitate his career, which did not work out. Freddy Adu in Atlanta, playing for Eric Winalda. Again, and I'll say this, I think I said this yesterday, it's a TV show waiting to happen. So if we're not going to get Freddy Adu wandering the earth looking for his next contract, I can't think of a better replacement for that idea than Freddy Adu playing for Eric Winalda in the NASL. It's like the replacements, only with one guy and not replacing anybody, but playing in the second division after 10 years of being the next great American soccer player. It's 10 years from this year. Freddy Adu signed his contract with DC United, or signed his contract with MLS, drafted by DC United. The downfall started 10 years ago, this year. It's fascinating to me how much of that was all of the pressure put on Freddy Adu, all of the attention, all of the hype, the Sierra Mist commercials, the Pele appearances, how much of that impacted how good he could be. What 14-year-old is ready for that? I don't even remember what I was doing at 14, but it sure as hell wasn't getting ready for a professional life of any kind. I wouldn't have been there. Freddy Adu, it's not like he worked up to this. It's not like they put him in the environment and said, hey, you're going to train for 3 years, no games, you'll just be around, we'll work you into this. No academies back then, remember that. No MLS academies back then. So they didn't bring him along slowly. They said, hey, we're going to sign you now. You're going to get drafted by your hometown team. Then you're going to have a problem with Peter Novak because he's not going to want to play you because you're 14 years old. 951, you're on the air.
Hi. I have a question. How do you think Freddy Adu would do in the Mexican League if they offered him a contract? And, like, what team would him playing for?
You know, I'm not going to identify a team because I would. Freddie's quote unquote style of play may or may not. It may be a fit for Mexico. I mean, he's certainly more time on the ball is better for Freddy Adu. But we saw what happened in Brazil. He couldn't break into the team of Bahia. So how should we just jump to the conclusion that he might be good? And I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm saying that based on his track record, we would have to believe that it's probably going to end up badly. Or with him not playing, sitting the bench, and eventually being let go. And I don't think that I don't know why a Mexican team would actually necessarily take a chance on him at this point. Although they've been willing to take chances on American players before, and he brings some heat. He's still a name. He's that guy. He's that guy. Got the big name without the talent or without the success to back it up. It's an interesting situation. Appreciate the call, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, we got less than a minute to go, so we got to wrap this show up. Please go to iTunes, give us a rating and a review. I haven't checked recently, but the more the better. Both of those, ratings, reviews. Let people know about Soccer Morning. Spread the word. Get it out there. We need to push this show further afield, beyond where it exists right now. We need to be the morning soccer show of choice. That was the only morning soccer show. Oh, that's right. We're not. We need a comedian on this show. You can send us email, show@soccermorning.com. Please do that. I'm on Twitter at DavisJSN. You can follow me there. Soccer Morning. Follow Soccer Morning. Follow Hey Hayward, because that's producer Trevor. Sometimes he says funny things and talks about beer. If you like beer, follow Trevor on Twitter. Anything else I need to let you know about? I don't think so. I think that's it. Thanks to Peter Karl, Tom Marshall, Leander Schaerlaeckens. Fantastic Thursday show. Be back tomorrow, Friday, looking ahead to the weekend. Don't go listening to any other podcast. I don't know what I was about to say. We'll listen to other podcasts, but then come back to us. We'll talk to you. Bye.
Days on the boulevard I landed. We used to kick routines and the presence was fitting. It was I, the abstract, and me, the